power is a mirror that offends. Your rise tallies their losses. Your competence highlights their delays. Your calm makes their panic obvious. You did not insult them. The reflection did. Understand this without romance. Resentment is the tax you pay for visible advantage. It is not a moral verdict. It is a cost of doing business in the marketplace of power, where every gain is a comparison, and every comparison is a wound. Watch how it gathers. Not in shouts, but in small gestures that pretend to be nothing. The pause before applause. The compliment that arrives with a barb hidden under velvet. A colleague forwards your idea to the group without your name attached. A friend forgets to invite you when the room is small and the cameras are out. A manager praises your initiative, then adds 3 hurdles only you must clear. The storm forms in silence and strikes with paperwork, rumors, and selective memory. They will not say, "Your success pains me." They will say, "I'm just being fair." They will call it process, balance, culture. They will weaponize neutrality. Your competence accuses them without a word. When you ship on time, you testify against their delays. When you speak clearly, you expose their fog. When you negotiate a better offer, you prove that more was always possible. People forgive accidents more than they forgive proof. Proof shames. The more disciplined you are, the more the undisciplined feel judged, kindness included. Do not be surprised when decency is recast as arrogance, or when confidence is tried as a public offense. To them, your success is evidence, and evidence is hard to love. Now the paradox you were never taught. Benefits create enemies more than injuries do. A clean injury is at least honest. It settles the account in one stroke. People grit their teeth, curse your name, and begin to heal. But a benefit creates debt, and debt is a leash only the neck can feel. The help feels smaller in the shadow of your gift, and smallness seeks an alibi. They will call it independence. They will call it fairness. But what they want is not justice. What they want is escape from the arithmetic of owing. Consider how it plays. You cover a friend's rent for a month. Later they avoid your eyes. You open a door, they complain about the draft. You recommend them for a role. 6 weeks later they explain why the opportunity wasn't aligned. The truth is plainer and more dangerous. Favors broadcast hierarchy. Hierarchy breeds quiet hatred in those who cannot repay. This is why a mistake may be forgiven, but a favor is resented. Injuries are remembered as past events. Benefits stay present as obligations. They hum every time your name is spoken. Gratitude is rare, and even when sincere, it runs on short fuel. Obligation, by contrast, is a chain that rattles until it snaps. Visibility invites knives. The spotlight is not light, it is heat. You accept a promotion, and the hallway cools when you pass. You post a small win, and a committee of strangers convenes beneath your photo to measure your worth with dull rulers. You join a new alliance, and your old circle calls it disloyalty. Sharp emails arrive after midnight. CCs multiply like weeds. Metrics are reinterpreted with priestly seriousness. Each bright step paints a target on your back, and every archer insists they are only defending standards. Remember, it is not danger that draws attack. It is display. See it clearly, without drama. You do not need to become cruel. You must become unsurprised. Expect that success, like wealth, must hire guards. Expect that goodness, when public, will be litigated. Expect that naivete is the most expensive luxury in a competitive city. Move accordingly. When you grant favors, keep them light and few, and never demand affection in return. When you take blows, convert them into calibration, not complaint. When you stand out, secure your flanks, document your work, diversify allies, make your value legible in numbers and outcomes, parry slander with receipts, not speeches. This is not cynicism. It is hygiene. The world runs on appetite and appearance. Motives are hidden, incentives are not. Resentment is the background weather of advantage. You cannot vote it away or reason it into silence. You price it in. If you must be seen, accept the cost of being seen. If you must rise, budget for the whispers and the knives. The blade you anticipate rarely lands. The blade you deny always does. Learn the grain of human nature, then cut with it, not against it. Power accepted, tax paid. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. You were told that kindness builds a fortress. Be endlessly polite, keep saying yes, and safety will follow. Look around. Popularity is a weather vane. It spins with the winds of interest. One bright day they adore your light. The next a cloud passes and their faces tilt elsewhere. This is not cruelty. It is climate. Pretending otherwise does not make the storm kinder. It only makes you wet. The lie of universal goodwill begins as sweet advice and ends as a weakened spine. When you aim to be liked by everyone, you bargain away the one thing everyone must respect, your boundaries. You cut your rate to keep a client who never pays on time. You absorb weekend work so the team stays happy, then watch them assume your weekends belong to them. You laugh at a joke at your expense to keep the circle smooth, and the circle learns that you are terrain, not a wall. Approval gained cheaply dissolves quickly. Consider the meeting where you swallowed your point to keep the peace. The project drifted for 2 months and returned broken. They did not remember your silence as grace. They remembered it as agreement, or the relationship where you said, "It's fine to avoid a scene." The pattern hardened, and your needs were filed under optional. Seeking universal goodwill teaches others to trade your comfort for their convenience. Respect follows the person who can say no without raising their voice. This is not a call to cruelty. It is a call to clarity. The world runs on interests. Be nice to everyone is not a strategy. It is a costume. People enjoy costumes until they need a shield. Then they look for the person who wears armor. Civility matters, but civility without borders is an invitation to be harvested. Choose to be understood before you are adored. The former lasts, the latter dances. Love is loaned. Fear is collateralized. Affection recites vows in spring and forgets them in winter. A crowd cheers while the scoreboard favors you. It quiets when the numbers turn. A colleague who praises your charm today may compete for your budget tomorrow. Love can be sincere and still unstable because it depends on desire, and desire migrates with opportunity. Fear, properly understood, is different. Not terror, not brutality. Prudent fear is the knowledge that crossing you has a cost. It is the border on the map, clear lines, no shouting. Think in contracts, not lullabies. If you miss the deadline, we shift scope, then shift it. If you ignore the standard, you are coached once, then documented, then reassigned, then follow through. They may not love the consequence, but they trust the map. Trust built on predictable enforcement is sturdier than affection built on mood. Contrast this with the leader who tries to hold loyalty with charm. They throw parties, write glowing posts, give favors like candy. The room feels warm, but the thermostat is broken. When a hard decision arrives, budget cuts, accountability, and unpopular direction, the warmth turns into fog. No one knows the rules, so no one knows where to stand. Prudent fear cuts the fog. This is acceptable. This is not. These are the rewards. These are the penalties. It is not personal. It is policy. Gratitude is short. Appetite is long. Yesterday's favor decays into today's baseline. You stepped in during a crisis and doubled your effort. Next quarter they call it your usual pace. You introduced a friend to a partner. Soon they ask for the mailing list. You discounted a service to help a client start. Within a year they balk when you raise to market rate, citing our relationship. Gratitude is a spark, bright, then gone. Appetite is the engine that never stops asking for fuel. Expect this, and you will stop writing fairy tales about fairness. People are not monsters. They are hungry, even you. A system that depends on lasting thanks will fail because thanks is fleeting while need is permanent. Designed for appetite, put generosity on a schedule. With scope, put policies in writing. With caps, adjust prices with clear triggers. When someone appeals to yesterday's favor, point to today's agreement. You are not cold, you are consistent. Here is the steel truth. Affection is not security. 1,000 likes cannot cover one breach in your gate. A warm room cannot negotiate when terms go sour. Safety is built from clarity, consequence, and capacity. Popularity can help, but only while interests align. When they don't, people return to the compass of self-preservation. Do not hate them for it. Forecast it and prepare. So you move differently. You keep your voice calm, your email tight, your rules few and enforced. You measure promises in hours and outcomes, not in smiles. You make goodwill a pleasant weather, not your roof. You reward loyalty when it costs, not when it claps. You decline with brevity. You show your ledger before you show your heart, not because you lack one, but because hearts deserve walls. Affection still matters. It oils the gears. It brightens the hall. But do not mistake oil for bolts. Build with bolts. Set the terms. Keep the receipts. If you lose a few admirers, you gain a spine, and a spine carries you through storms. Popularity passes like weather. Structure remains like stone. In a Machiavellian world, interests are wind. Let them blow. You stand because you are anchored. I choose clarity over comfort. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You think you choose. You sign the contract, accept the meeting, stay silent in the room where the wrong plan wins. But beneath the reasons, older hands move the strings. Wounds do not shout. They steer. A childhood of proving trains you to prove again. The memory of being left out makes you scan faces for weather. The hidden shame of thriving when others struggled turns victories into apologies. Resentment smells these openings and writes your calendar while you call it duty. Start with the need to be liked. It seems harmless, even virtuous. Be agreeable, keep the peace, be easy to work with. Yet the psyche keeps score in the dark. When you over-accommodate, you train people to read your yes as default. Nice becomes an interface, not a boundary. They learn they can press, and you will flex. They do not hate you. They learn to mine you. Affection becomes access. Smiles become keys. Watch how it unfolds. A teammate asks you to review a quick draft at 10 p.m. You are tired but helpful, so you say yes. Next week, the message returns with assumption baked in. In a family chat, silence follows your personal win. You rush to soften it with self-deprecating jokes. In your relationship, you carry conflict for two because you can, turning your capability into the airport everyone uses. Your niceness becomes a service, and services invite subscriptions. The deeper pattern is older than the office. You bargain for belonging with endless consent. The child in you believes admittance is stamped on the ticket marked agree. So you underprice your work, overpraise mediocre efforts, and swallow requests that violate your values. People sense the gap. Quiet contempt grows where respect should live. They ask for more because you train them to. This is not cruelty, it is gravity. The shadow of the unloved self pilots your mouth while your face smiles. Now the second wound, guilt about winning. You did not set out to outpace your peers. You studied, stayed late, asked harder questions. The door opened for you, not for them, and your stomach tightened. Survivor's guilt arrived with a friendly mask. It whispered, lower your light. It told you to downplay results, add disclaimers, apologize for the very standards that made the result possible. Notice the small betrayals of your own strength. You present the quarter's numbers and say, it was a team effort when your discipline held the line. You interview a candidate and blur the bar because you fear sounding elitist, then inherit months of correction. You offer discounts before the client asks. As if speed requires a rebate, guilt becomes a lever anyone can pull. They reference hardship, hint at envy, suggest your excellence is unfair, and you bend to balance an imaginary scale. Compassion does not require apology. Your success does not cause their suffering. Reality is not a single pie baked once, yet guilt persuades you to treat your standards like weapons and your boundaries like crimes. In meetings, you lace sentences with qualifiers. In negotiations, you negotiate against yourself. In friendships, you hide good news until it is old and safe. The unconscious contract reads, if I minimize my height, you will not resent my view. Predictably, you shrink, and they still squint. Third wound, aversion to conflict as policy. You tell yourself it is diplomacy. You are picking your battles, but avoidance becomes a public signal that pressure works. People learn that if they push, you retreat. If they delay, you cover. If they escalate, you absorb the cost to restore calm. This is not strategy. It is habit writing law in your name. Set metaphors aside and look at the mechanics. You postpone a hard feedback conversation for 3 weeks. Performance worsens, others notice you will not confront. So they route their mess through you. You accept a scope change without an adjusted timeline. Scope changes multiply. A vendor misses a milestone. You answer with empathy alone. Misses become the norm. Your willingness to forgive becomes an operating assumption, not a rare mercy. Avoidance at the individual level becomes policy at the collective level. The team stops preparing before meetings because you tolerate rambling. Stakeholders drop last-minute requests because you absorb them. The organization shapes itself around your softness. Opportunists exploit the shape. They do not need to beat you, they bend you. They learn your threshold for discomfort, then set the temperature just under it and call it culture. Resentment navigates by these wounds like a thief reading light. It notes your hunger to be liked and hands you tasks that buy applause but drain authority. It notices your guilt and feeds you stories where saying no looks cruel. It watches your conflict avoidance and sends proxies to test the edges. Wherever you hide from your own shadow, it installs a toll booth and charges your energy to pass. So what does it mean to make the unconscious conscious? Not confession for spectacle, not a loud brand of authenticity. It means tracing the trigger to the memory and the memory to the rule you adopted. If I make others comfortable, I am safe. If I never outshine, I am loved. If I avoid friction, I will not be abandoned. These rules were once protections. They kept you in the village. Adulthood asks for a different village and different rules. Practice small reversals that teach your nervous system new math. When asked for the late-night favor, reply, "I'll review during working hours." Let the anxiety rise and watch it fall without your compliance. When presenting results, state your contribution cleanly and stop. When guilt whispers, test reality. Does lowering your standard help anyone grow? When conflict looms, schedule the conversation within 48 hours. Write an agenda with outcomes and follow it. This is not aggression, it is integration. You invite the shadow to the table so it stops grabbing the wheel in tunnels. Update the architecture around you. Put boundaries in writing. Response times, scope, revision limits, meeting lengths, hold them without heat. Replace apologies with terms. Replace hints with statements. When someone leans on the old triggers, we were counting on you to be flexible. Not everyone has your advantages. Let's not make a big deal. Recognize the script. Scripts are predictable, and what is predictable can be planned for. Prepare phrases that fit your mouth. Flexibility lives inside clear limits. I won't lower the bar, I'll help you reach it. We can discuss this after the deadline is restored. Expect grief as you retire the old bargains. The nice identity will miss its audience. The guilty rescuer will miss the rush of being needed. The avoider will miss the illusion of peace. Let them grieve. The larger you, the one who can see in the dark, has other work. Choices stop being a rescue mission and start being a design. Resentment loses its map when your wounds stop broadcasting coordinates. The aim is not to become hard. The aim is to become whole. When you integrate the shadow, you no longer trade autonomy for affection, standards for safety, or silence for harmony. You still care. You still give. But now you choose from center, not from fear. Fate becomes a series of decisions you can name, defend, and live with. That is grown freedom. Not the absence of pressure, but the presence of self under pressure. I set terms with my shadow beside me. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few know what you are. It begins with a tremor in the room, a joke with your name inside it, a raised eyebrow when you speak. You feel it before you can prove it. The air has changed. Your image is no longer yours. It is a puppet in other hands. Arrogant, cold, lucky, political, small words, easy to pass along, sharp enough to bleed. You think you can outrun them with more performance, more proof, more warmth, but every move you make on their stage pays rent to their story. Reputation under siege is not a fire. It is fog. You try to cut it with speeches and apologies. The fog swallows both. A colleague frames your decisiveness as control. Another recasts your standards as cruelty. A manager hints you advance because of timing, not talent. The tags stick because they offer simple comfort. If you are arrogant, they are not unprepared. If you are lucky, they are not late. You answer defensively, add smiley faces, over-explain, soften edges, and the frame tightens like a net. Watch the cuts. Slack lights up with a thread you weren't tagged on. Someone posts just a thought that mirrors your plan, minus your name. In a meeting, an ally turns neutral. Another meeting appears without you. A client mentions they heard you can be difficult. None of this is proof in a courtroom. All of it is gravity in a corridor. You sprint with receipts. The hallway tilts anyway. That is the cost of playing on someone else's stage. You spend energy satisfying a script you did not write. The trap is reflex. You want to defend your character, so you narrate your heart, but hearts are invisible to those invested in the mask. The more you explain, the more you signal that the mask is negotiable. It is not to them. Strategy returns you to ground. Stop performing innocence. Start performing results that are legible, repeatable, documented. Withdraw from debate about your nature. Put your metrics on the table like steel. Make the frame irrelevant by making outcomes undeniable. Then comes moral fatigue. It does not announce itself with thunder. It is a low leak. Each day you justify one more choice to prove you are good. You add context to every email. You run your tone through a second filter. You overtip respect even when none is returned. You fight the fog with candles, and every candle costs oxygen. Clarity erodes, not because you lack values, but because constant explanation hollows them. You trade principle for silence, boundary for harmony, speed for acceptance. You feel it in your body, the dread before meetings, the quick apology for existing, the way your voice reaches for softness, even when the truth is hard and should remain hard. You tell yourself that peace requires you to shrink, but the peace you buy this way expires fast. The bill arrives as resentment you carry alone. Now the slide, the concession cascade. It never starts with surrender. It starts with one small bend you tell yourself you can correct later. You let a rumor pass unchecked. You hope it dies. It multiplies. You skip the debrief to avoid conflict. The same mistake returns. You accept the meeting without an agenda. It eats your morning. You revise the contract just this once. The exception becomes a template. You allow the team to redefine done. Deadlines blur. You turn the camera off to rest. You become easy to exclude. You postpone the hard feedback. You inherit the failure. You promote the safe candidate. You cede mediocrity. You apologize for a correct decision. Your spine becomes negotiable. Beat by beat, small compromises widen into strategy. You look up and realize you are defending ground you never chose. You speak more and are heard less. You try to be fair and become a floor. The spiral is simple. Confusion at the shift, self-doubt at the echoes, concessions to make the echoes stop. They do not stop. They grow louder in the space your retreat creates. Make the slide visible. When rumors rise, do not chase them with sentiment. Issue facts in clean lines. Once, document, circulate, move. When someone calls you arrogant, ask for the specific behavior and the impact. If none comes, end the conversation. When they call you lucky, show the ledger, hours tracked, targets met, constraints managed. Do not argue about deserts, present deliverables. Refuse the theater of motives. Insist on the court of outcomes. To counter moral fatigue, cut the circuits that drain you. Reduce explanations to policies. Replace endless tone calibration with templates. Write a one-sentence principle for each recurring dilemma and follow it. We change scope with new deadlines. We reward performance, not proximity. We do not negotiate standards with volume. The fewer decisions you make from mood, the less of you leaks out trying to be understood by those who prefer you confused. And for the cascade, install speed bumps, require agendas, enforce timelines, publish definitions of done, tie favors to caps and dates, decide how many deviations you will allow each quarter, then stop at the number. Teach your nervous system that stopping is survival, not danger. When your body craves concession to buy quiet, remember, quiet bought with surrender funds the next attack. This is the Machiavellian clarity. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few know what you are. Do not give your enemies a discount by supplying your own doubt. Appear controlled, be controlled. Appear measured, be measured. Appear loyal to outcomes above narratives. Then keep the contract with yourself when no one applauds. The identity that survives a siege is not loud. It is consistent. It does not answer every knock on the door. It strengthens the door. You are not a puppet. You are a charter. Rewrite it with terms that hold in weather. Choose 3 behaviors that define you under pressure and make them public. Protect your hours. Protect your standards. Protect your tone from trial by rumor. Let your friends defend your character. Let your work defend your position. When the fog thickens, do not sprint. Switch on instruments. Fly by metrics. Land where you planned. The spiral can stop. Not with a shout, but with a sequence. Refuse the frame, retire the apology, reverse the small surrender. Your image will catch up to your architecture. Your identity, once in pieces, will click back into a design that does not require approval to stand. I keep my stage, my terms, my center. Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, covetous. Drop the romance. You do not need to be loved. You need to be effective. Love is weather. Structures are climate. Adult clarity replaces daydreams with design. Be useful, be respected, be properly guarded. This is not cynicism. It is maintenance of your time, your value, your peace. From affection to alignment, durable ties do not depend on how people feel in a moment. They depend on how incentives line up across months. Two firms collaborate not because they admire each other's branding, but because shared risk lowers cost and raises profit. A friend remains close, not because your stories sparkle, but because trust plus reciprocity makes both lives easier. A team stays loyal when the path to their goals runs through doing the work with you, not around you. The point is simple and strong. Alignment outlasts affection. Start by mapping interests without flattery. What does your counterpart want that you can reliably supply? What do you need that they can actually deliver? Put these on paper. Replace "we like working together" with "we exchange X for Y by Z date," with A if late and B if early. Define success in numbers, scope, and timelines. If interests drift, adjust the contract or release the tie without ceremony. Emotion can remain warm, but the spine is structural. If the bridge no longer bears weight, close it. Apply this to daily life. With colleagues, align visibility to contribution. Publish dashboards that show inputs and outputs, not vibes. With friends, agree on simple rules. We trade favors inside limits. We tell the truth when it's costly. We keep confidences. With yourself, match commitments to capacity. Do not sell the future by overpromising today. Alignment is adult affection, reliable, measurable, renewable. From apology to policy. Guilt is a poor manager. It waffles, it bargains, it spends your reserves trying to appease feelings that regenerate. Policy is clean. Policy protects everyone, including you. Write what you reward, what you refuse, what you ignore, and follow it under heat. Reward, excellence, candor, punctuality, ownership. Tie each to concrete benefits: money, access, opportunity, praise in public. Refuse, miss deadlines without notice. Scope creep without pay. Disrespect masked as passion, secrecy that undermines the mission. Ignored by design, gossip, fishing for special status, emotional blackmail dressed as urgency. Publish these rules at the scale that fits: a one-page working agreement for your team, a rate card for your clients, a private checklist you run before saying yes. Policies are not speeches, they are triggers. If a client requests a discount, the price ladder decides, not your mood. If a teammate repeatedly interrupts, the meeting rule activates: one warning, then a note, then exclusion for a cycle. If someone uses volume to override standards, the escalation path clicks into place. When rules are clear, you stop spinning narratives. You execute. Your steadiness becomes predictable, which is a gift to the rational and a deterrent to the manipulative. Replace sorry with structure. Stop apologizing for firmness. Send terms. Stop cushioning correct decisions. Send the policy text. Stop writing essays about fairness. Send the same rule to everyone. You will be called cold by those who lived off your warmth. Keep going. Heat is expensive. Structure is cheap to run. From openness to controlled access, not every room deserves your full light. Discretion is not secrecy. It is sequencing. You show the right slice to the right people at the right time. That is how professionals protect momentum and negotiate from strength. Control what you signal. Announce goals after groundwork, not before. Share roadmaps internally with role-based detail. Offer clients visibility into milestones, not your entire workshop. In social spaces, post outcomes, not raw plans that invite preemptive friction. Keep your drafts tight, your backups current, your receipts organized. Visibility should be an asset you allocate, not a leakage you regret. Control who can move what. Use access tiers for documents. Keep financials with the few who must decide. Limit edit rights. Grant comment rights sparingly. Record decisions in a log. In meetings, cap attendees to decision makers and executors. Observers get summaries. Emotionally, reserve your inner processing for the few who can hold it. Popular catharsis is expensive. Targeted counsel is efficient. Control when you reveal. Timing is leverage. Present data when the window to act is open. Negotiate when alternatives are available, not when you are cornered. Escalate early enough that process can work, but not so early that it becomes theater. Delay public celebration until risks have been cleared, then share in measured frames that reinforce the story you can sustain. All of this replaces the fragile hope of being loved with the steady math of being dependable and defended. You will still be liked by some and disliked by others. That stops being a crisis. The relevant question becomes, are the agreements sound, the incentives aligned, the access controlled? If yes, affection is a bonus, not the budget. Your posture changes. You stop chasing faces and start curating terms. You stop proving your heart and start proving your system. You lose fair-weather fans and gain durable partners. What once felt like coldness becomes clean air. This is adult clarity, not a hard shell, but a strong frame that lets real warmth travel inside without leaking into the street. I choose alignment, policy, and measured light. Power without structure invites pity. Power with structure invites respect. You are not here to be theatrical. You are here to be effective. The parts of you that you hid, decisiveness, cold assessment, strategic silence, are not sins. They are tools. When you integrate them under principle, you become calm, formidable, and difficult to resent without consequence. This is the Machiavellian meeting of the shadow, not a confession, a configuration. Begin with incentives, not intentions. People say they mean well, believe their calendars and their contracts. Translate morality into mechanisms so cooperation pays and sabotage costs. Map the game on one sheet, spell out roles, deliverables, timelines, and the exact currency that moves when reality moves. Reward fast, clean, and publicly. If a teammate hits the metric, the bonus triggers within 72 hours, no speeches, no begging. If a vendor ships early and error-free, the acceleration clause pays a premium. If a partner brings 3 qualified leads, the referral credit posts automatically. You are teaching a nervous system, not preaching to a choir. Reinforcement is the grammar of behavior. Make it precise. Price friction. Every deviation has a tariff. Late work without notice, scope shrinks or fee rises by a stated %. Missed meeting, reschedule fee, unapproved changes, change order with costs and dates, gossip that harms delivery, remove access document, tie participation to communication standards. The rule is simple: align virtue with advantage. Good behavior should be easier than bad behavior. If vice still pays, you configured the machine wrong. Audit your own incentives. If you always rescue last-minute chaos, chaos becomes a strategy. If being nice wins more access than performance, you've priced yourself cheaply. Reverse it. Treat clarity as the only door. People who can pass through it get more room. People who can't don't. Not personal. Physics. Next, the art of measured fear. Not terror, not humiliation. Prudent fear is the knowledge that crossing the line hurts in a predictable way. It is the clean edge of a paper, not the swing of a club. You define it in advance, you apply it without drama, and you end it when the lesson is learned. Codify the ladder of response. First lapse, written note with the violated standard, the impact, and the corrective action by a fixed date. Second consequence activates reduced scope, reassignment, loss of a perk. Third, removal from the arena tied to that standard. Keep the tone boring. Bored tone is power. Rage is evidence you lost the interior war. Separate person from pattern. Praise in detail when the pattern is strong. Correct in detail when the pattern is weak. You do not insult character. You do not speculate about motives. You stay inside observable behavior and documented agreements. This preserves dignity while keeping the border visible. People may dislike the outcome. They will respect the map. Respect is the soil where prudent fear grows. Ban spectacles. No public shaming, no asides, no weaponized meetings. If the goal is compliance, theater is expensive. Deliver consequences in the smallest necessary room. End enforcement with a re-entry path. Standard, time frame verification. Fear without return breeds sabotage. Fear with a path back breeds improvement. Train yourself too. When a line is crossed, your nervous system will want to explain, lecture, or explode. Instead, execute the pre-written step. The difference between cruelty and authority is whether the punishment serves the rule or the ruler's mood. Your mood is irrelevant. The rule is the whole show. Now image craft is armor. You do not need to be mysterious. You need to be unconfusable. The more noise you make, the more surface you offer to knives. Let metrics do most of your talking. Speak last, speak briefly, and make numbers the spine of your story. Control cadence. Weekly outcomes against targets, blockers, next steps. Monthly, one-page scoreboard with 3 wins, 3 risks, 3 decisions. Quarterly, strategy shifts tied to market facts, not vibes. Publish in the same format, same time, same channel. Repetition becomes reputation. Control diction. Replace grand claims with measurable language. We moved conversion from 2.8% to 3.3%. Beats, we crushed it. We will decline scope until reliability returns. Beats, were disappointed. Use verbs that assign responsibility. Decide, deliver, repair, refuse. The more verbs, the less theater. Control presence. In meetings, listen until noise exhausts itself. Ask 2 surgical questions that expose reality. What must be true by Friday? Whose name sits next to that? Then state a short decision. When pushed to explain your temperament, do not point to the instrument panel. Deadlines, budgets, errors per 1,000 units, churn. You are not the story. The system is. Silence is not emptiness. It is selection. Keep your counsel while options are still volatile. Announce after alignment. Praise sparingly and specifically. It matters more. Decline invitations that dilute your brand. Panels where nothing is decided, groups without authority, debates on motives. You are building an image that says low noise, high consequence, reliable outputs. Integrate your neglected traits inside this frame. Decisiveness means decisions with timestamps and owners, not speed for its own sake. Cold assessment means the ability to cut a favorite feature when it fails the model, not the death of empathy. Strategic silence means you do not feed rumors with your breath. You let your results and policies do the talking until the room prefers facts. Put it all together in a compact operating system. Draft a working charter, purpose, principles, incentives, enforcement, cadence. Share it with your team, your clients, and yourself. When conflict comes, and it will, you don't search your conscience. You open the charter and run the sequence. Others will feel the edge and adjust. Those who cannot adjust will orbit elsewhere. Both outcomes are wins. Expect to be called cold by those who lived off your unguarded warmth. Expect to be called political by those who preferred randomness that favored them. Expect resentment. Price it in. They cannot cheaply wound you because your armor is agreements, not apologies. The more you anchor in structure, the less you need to perform goodness. The less you perform, the fewer handles you give to those who would tug you into their theater. This is how you become calm. You stop negotiating your standards with every wind. This is how you become formidable. You align benefits with the behavior that builds. This is how you become hard to resent without consequence. You ensure consequence, and in that quiet, you find something better than being loved. You find being legible, durable, and free. I govern myself. The terms govern the rest. Peace is not a mood. It is an arrangement, where walls are sound and bargains are plain. Storms may howl, and yet the city sleeps. You do not wait for harmony. You build it like masonry, brick by brick, rule by rule, with hands that stay steady when the weather turns. Peace through design begins with roles. Who decides, who executes, who verifies? Write the names. Put the thresholds beside them. What greenlights a project, what halts it, what triggers review. Add consequences that are predictable and dull. Dull is good. Dull is safe. If deadlines slip, scope narrows or costs rise. If standards fall, privileges pause. If behavior breaks trust, access closes. The drama lives outside your gate. Inside, protocol keeps the blood pressure low. You already know sentiment cannot do this work. A friendly team can still drown in unclear ownership. A loving family can still fight over every chore. Goodwill is a breeze. Structures are steel. Draft a one-page charter for your work, your household, your circle. Make it simple enough to memorize and strong enough to outlast moods. The point is not control, the point is continuity. So the day keeps moving even when feelings stall. Use modern tools to keep the city clean. Shared dashboards show the state of the streets, deadlines, budgets, defect rates, promises kept, standing agendas, reduce surprise meetings. Short contracts define versions of done. When the rules are visible, people relax. They may not always like the outcome, but they trust how it was reached. Trust lowers noise. Low noise is peace. Now narrow the circle. A smaller circle is a stronger city. Selective loyalty is not cold, it is warm on purpose. You make fewer promises and keep them deeply. You trade surface applause for durable bonds. Choose allies who share your map of reality. Incentives matter. Clarity is kindness. Consequences are not cruelty. With them you can speak in half sentence and still be precise. Practice mutual leverage. If you bring opportunity, they bring competence. If you open a door, they guard your back. Exchange value in both directions, so neither side feels owned. Set caps on favors, timelines on help, and reviews on commitments. This turns friendship into a reliable bridge, not a rope that frays under weight. In business, this looks like revenue shares tied to delivery. In private life, this looks like rotating duties with written rotations. The warmth does not fade. It focuses. Prune with respect. Not every acquaintance is an ally. Not every ally belongs in every room. Some people are good for ideas, not execution. Some are great in a sprint, not a marathon. Let placements reflect strengths rather than history. When you move someone out of a role, do it cleanly and quickly. Explain the standard, show the gap, offer a narrower lane or a clear exit. Mercy without clarity breeds resentment. Clarity with courtesy breeds relief. Guard the gates of attention. Peace requires quiet channels. Disable alerts that treat you like a hallway. Schedule windows for decisions and windows for rest. Protect mornings for building and evenings for renewal. A city that never sleeps becomes a city that cannot think. You design silence the way you design roads, with intentional lanes and signals. Finally, carry yourself with quiet authority. Speak less, mean more. When you praise, make it specific. When you correct, make it brief. Keep records so memory cannot be weaponized. Let your reputation be a system, not a smile. The world may remain unruly, but your square will feel ordered. Order invites dignity. Dignity attracts stable allies, the kind who value a firm handshake more than a flashy promise. Hope lives here in schedules that hold, in deals that keep, in rooms where standards do not tremble. This is not naive optimism. It is earned ease. You refuse chaos, the fuel of confusion. You price betrayal and reward reliability. You keep your circles small, your terms written, your conscience clean. Peace arrives, not as a surprise guest, but as a resident with keys. Be fair, be clear, be prepared to be disliked.